Hey everybody, welcome back. I am super excited because today I'm going to do a how I became a teacher video. I have some questions I'm going to use. It's kind of going to help me guide what I talk about because otherwise I could just talk forever. I'm super excited to get to share with you a little bit about how I became a teacher and kind of my experience since then and what the past few years have looked like for me. So I'll get started. The first question I'm going to answer is, did you always know you wanted to be a teacher? Yes. So teaching's always been something I wanted to do. I feel like it was just something I was born to do. Like, I know that sounds so cliche, but it really does feel like something I was born to do. Like, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. In fact, I was in a interview earlier this year, and one of the questions they asked me was, if you were not a teacher, what else would you do? And I told them, I was like, I don't see myself doing anything except for teaching. Yeah, I've always wanted to be a teacher. Number 2, what was your major? So I went to the University of Wyoming. Go Folks! I majored in elementary education. I have a minor in early childhood education. Number 3, what requirements did your state have for teachers? Did you have to do observation hours or student teaching? In the state of Utah, you have a couple ways you can get a teaching certificate. So kind of my story about how I got my license. This is an interesting one. I accepted my job in April of my senior year of college, so I started looking into getting my Utah license. So I applied for the one I thought was the correct one, moved out to Utah, got started teaching. So I got started teaching, and then I got an email from the lady at HR. Basically said, in order to finalize your certificate, because you have this type, you need to complete these courses. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I was really confused as to why I needed to complete courses that I had already taken in my college program. So then my achievement coach from our building came to talk to me one day and was asking me what my major was in college. I told her it was elementary education. And then she asked me why I had an APT license, which is an academic pathway to teaching license, which is what you can get in Utah if you have a degree, but it's not in education. I found out I had applied for the wrong license. So I realized I needed to apply for the Utah out-of-state license, and they needed a in-state license somewhere else. Well, I didn't have one, because when I graduated from the University of Wyoming, I was not required to get a Wyoming teaching license. So I had to get a Wyoming license. So in order to get your license in Wyoming, they need a couple of things. So like your transcripts from your university. They also needed a background check, current background check, and fingerprints. And they still had mine on file because I actually have my sub-license. So they already had my background check, because when you do the program at the University of Wyoming, after you hit 60 credits your sophomore year, they require you to get your substitute license. They already had my background check from that. I apologize for the dog in the background. And then they also needed a institutional recommendation, which is from your university. So I had to contact my university, get in touch with the office of the registrar, who had to send an institutional recommendation to the Wyoming State Board of Ed, and Wyoming takes forever. So, finally get my Wyoming certificate. Then I took my Wyoming state license and my transcripts, and Utah already had my background check and my praxis scores and whatever other paperwork needed, the application, mailed it off to Utah. I finally got my Utah teaching degree certificate. In terms of observation hours and student teaching, that was something that was required by my university. So just a little bit of background information. The University of Wyoming has a lab school on campus. It's one of the few left in the country. So they have an elementary school, it's K6, on campus. So the elementary school is here, College of Ed is right behind it. Everything's right there. So the students, the college students, have really great resource right there and easy access to go in and do observations and help and teach. And they do student teaching placements there and practicum placements there and all kinds of stuff. So that was something that we were able to utilize all 4 years. My first 2 years, it was just kind of some observation stuff, a lot of coursework. So then my third year, my junior year, I had a practicum that I had to do. So I was placed in the second grade classroom in Cheyenne, and so I had to drive from Laramie to Cheyenne. And then my senior year, we did our 3 methods courses and then started our student teaching. And so we did a little bit of work in our student teaching class in the fall, and then we were doing our student teaching in the spring. So that was just kind of like the observation and the student teaching that I was required to do. So next question, number 4. How did you decide what you wanted to teach, what age and grade and or subject? Growing up, I already said I always wanted to be a teacher. It was something I wanted to do. Never thought about anything else. And I always knew I wanted to teach elementary school. So secondary was never a thought. But I was kind of open to really anything. When I started applying for jobs, I just kind of applied for anything that was available K-5. My dream grade has always been second grade. I love that age group. I love the content in second grade. I love how they're independent, but they're not completely independent, and they're still dependent, and they still enjoy school, and they're interested in learning. And so second grade was always my dream. That was what I wanted, but I was kind of open to anything, and I really did enjoy my first grade experience. When I applied, I ended up teaching 4th grade, so that's where I'm at right now. I've been teaching 4th grade for the past 2 years. But I'm actually leaving 4th grade this year, and I get to teach my dream job. Yay! Number 5. Did you do any substitute teaching? Not really. So like I said earlier, I accepted my position the end of April, and I graduated 3 weeks later. And so there really was like no room for substitute teaching. I did have a sub license. I didn't do any subbing except when I did my student teaching. There were 4 days that I was able to sub for my cooperating teacher while she had to take some time. Question number 6 says, what was the process like to apply for the first teaching job you were hired for? When I started looking for jobs the end of my senior year in college, I started looking really early in March because I knew that the district my mom worked in had already started posting things in March. And so I hopped on it right away. So I was kind of open to anything, K-5. I was also open to kind of location. So I applied to districts in Colorado Springs. So there were several in Colorado Springs that I applied to. I applied to some districts in northern Colorado in like the Fort Collins-Greeley area because I have family that lives there. My grandparents are just outside of Greeley. I applied to certain districts in Wyoming. And then when I was at Wyoming, I was on the cheer team, and part of being on the cheer team was being able to travel, and so I got to travel a couple of times, and so we went to Boise and Las Vegas. So we went to Las Vegas for basketball. I went 3 years, and then we went to Boise my senior year for a football game. And so each time we left, we drove down I-80 and through Salt Lake. And every time we drove through Salt Lake, I was like, it's a really pretty place. I would live here. So I applied in some districts in Utah. In terms of the job I have, I first had to do an interview with a screening interview with HR. And then after that, I was able to reach out and contact principals who had job postings. And so that's what I started doing. And I had an interview with my current principal. And then I also had an interview for a kindergarten position at one of the schools in the district I graduated from, right down the street from my parents' house. So then leading up to me accepting that position, I had an interview Friday. It was a Friday afternoon. Finished that interview, and then I was meeting a friend for frozen yogurt that night, and they called me back, and this was like 30 minutes after my interview. And then they offered me that position. Well, I asked them if I could wait and give them an answer on Monday. So I had the weekend to think about it, and I let them know I had some other opportunities that I was waiting to hear back from. Well, that whole weekend, I kind of felt like I was going to get offered 2 positions. The position that I interviewed for, the kindergarten position in Colorado, and then the position that I had interviewed for in Utah that I currently have. And I had this feeling all weekend that I was going to get offered both positions. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I know I don't want this third grade position, but what am I going to do about this? Like, do I move home and teach kindergarten, or do I move out to Salt Lake and teach 4th or 5th grade? And I prayed about it. I went to sleep Sunday night, and I woke up Monday morning like perfectly clear in my head about what I was going to do. So my principal called me early in the morning. I was doing an observation in a 2nd grade classroom. I was doing my observation and I got a phone call, and so I walked out, answered the phone call, and I was offered the position. And so I accepted the position. Later that morning, I got a phone call from the school in Colorado Springs who was offering me that position, and so I actually declined that position. I think it really helped that I was kind of open to everything. I know that's not always the case for everybody, but the more open you can be about the position you are wanting, the district you're in, the school you're at, the grade you're in, even the city that you're in, is going to give you more opportunities. Question number 7, speaking of interviews, says, were there any common interview questions? Before I even answer that question, I'm going to back up just a second. So I interviewed for positions the spring of 2018. At the end of last school year, my teacher that I was working with, we have 2 classes in each grade, so the other teacher was retiring. So I sat in interviews, and then this year I interviewed for a couple of jobs. So I've been in interviews for the past 3 springs, so I have quite a bit of experience with interviews. You're going to get your common questions like, what does your classroom management look like? How would you deal with a student who's refusing to do work or refusing to follow directions? You're definitely going to get some questions about like collaborating with coworkers. One of the ones I got a lot. How do you use data to inform your instruction? You might get questions about how you would plan a lesson. Almost there, guys. Number 8. What was your first teaching position? I think I've already said this. My first teaching position is the position I'm currently in, which is a 4th grade teacher in Utah. So that was my first position. It's a position I have. I've been there for 2 years, and then next year I'm moving to 2nd grade, same building. Number 9. What did you feel prepared for on your first day, and what did you feel unprepared for? This is a tricky question because as a new teacher, you really feel unprepared for pretty much everything. Like, you think you're prepared, but then you're like really not prepared. Be like, I don't know what to do. People would be like, what do you need help with? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I don't know because I don't know. So I kind of did this question backwards. So I really felt unprepared for lots of things. Specifically, like extreme behavior management. We had some really extreme behaviors in my classroom last year. I really felt unprepared for those types of things, like students tearing my room apart. I feel like my student teaching really prepared me for like teaching and content and like the pedagogy of it and how to teach it and how to do the engaging strategies and all of those types of things, how to plan and collect data and analyze. Really felt prepared for that. Don't think my student teaching prepared me well enough for classroom management. Joining in February, you kind of miss those first few months of the school year where routines are being established and what the first month of school looks like. And I wish I could have experienced that. And number 10. Number 10 is, do you have any other advice? If I had to give one piece of advice to a first-year teacher, really spend time putting in your routines and procedures for 2 months if you need to. And if they don't get it, and then 4 months later, if they're not getting it, go over it again. Don't be afraid to go back over them. Don't feel like you can only spend the first week going over routines and procedures. Like I said earlier, make sure that you are getting the correct teaching certificate and the correct license. That's helpful. So my last piece of advice is to find somebody who's going to be your rock on your hard day. Whether that's a mentor teacher or a coach, or if it's just another teacher in your building who you become really close with, and find somebody who's going to be your rock on your hard day, who you can go to and you can say, here's what happened today. if I had one like big piece of advice, don't be afraid to ask for help. Teaching's hard. It's worth it, but it's so hard. It's so difficult, and you're gonna have days that you feel like everything went wrong and I don't know what to do. Don't be afraid to ask for help. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love being able to share this stuff with you and give you a little bit more information about me. As always, if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe so you can see my next video. Have a great day.